Hey, this is Joe from Citrus Chronic Porch Life coming to you today for December 7th, 2024 with the A word of the day. And the word today is true ambition. And I would like to start off by reading the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous so that we can review them because they're referred to here. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So, those are the 12 steps that we've been referring to. And step 12 is like the last step on the journey up into increased spirituality and awareness of God. And so the last few readings we have will have to do with that. So here is a reading. True ambition. True ambition is not what we thought. True ambition is the deep desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God. That's from 12 Steps and 12 Traditions of AA, page 124 to 125. And it's important to note that what I just read were the short forms of the 12 steps. There are long forms, and each one's a chapter in the 12 and 12, and there are short and long forms of the traditions. That's why it's so good to get that book, so you can have an explanation rather than my poor explanation of what's going on. During my drinking years, my one and only concern was to have my fellow man think highly of me. My ambition in everything I did was to have power to be at the top. My inner self kept telling me something else, but I couldn't accept it. I didn't even allow myself to realize that I wore a mask continually. Finally, when the mask came off and I cried out to the only God I could conceive, the fellowship of AA, my group and the 12 steps were there. I learned how to change resentments into acceptance, fear into hope, anger into love. I have learned also through loving without undue expectations, though sharing my concerns and caring for my through sharing my concerns and caring for my fellow man, that each day can be joyous and fruitful. I begin and end my day with thanks to God who has so generously given me His grace. And So we can see very easily that step 12 is the culmination. It's where we put all those principles that we learned into bringing a message to other alcoholics and, of course, continuing the message with ourselves. True ambition is the deep desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God. My first career was in IT, and I really, I majored in math. I got my master's in mathematics, and I was pretty prepared for the job. But I found out very quickly that it didn't really matter what you knew, if you it was who you knew, and that really is the case. Uh, you had very incompetent people. We were a mid-range bank in Rhode Island that I started out in, and relatives of people would be taken in and promoted. The actual president of the bank was what they call a swamp Yankee, very, very old, and he became a president of the bank, no training at all in banking. I was in the IT end of it, so I didn't really get involved in it, really anything to do with banking. But I saw very quickly that gnawing struggle to the top. Everybody wanted to be at the top. And then I noticed the longer I was there for 21 years, that people who were promoted to vice president, assistant vice president, or vice president, very quickly, uh, it seemed like they were giving you a gift, a pay raise, but you were quickly gotten rid of right after that. Uh, there were many middle management purges. So I thought, something, I worked third shift. I was the head of the department. Everything went through me. I dealt with all outside uh, agencies as I had to. And I thought I got a pretty secure job here because, nobody wants third shift. And I did. And, it let me drink the way I wanted to, too. But I wasn't too much afraid that someone was going to come and take my position. So I learned to stay away from that chase to the top because at the top's only one person. So it was very unrealistic to think that I'm going to get up there, you know. Uh, and when I went into my second career, that I had disabused myself of that idea completely. When I went into nursing, I found a niche right away. I edited a Math for Meds book for nurses. I worked on nursing stuff that had to do with automatic medication dispensing, programming it, all the technical issues. And people would leave me alone. Oh, here comes Joe. We better leave him alone. Uh, and I did wear a mask when I was, looking to get to the top. And I'm really glad that I didn't because I went out on a high note. I went out at a very good pay and I had no regrets. I didn't stomp over anyone, get in fights with anyone. Yeah, I had my 20th anniversary and no one even knew that I worked for the bank. And finally, when I got transferred to Boston, that's when I ended my drinking days. Uh, you know, I knew that I didn't want to spend another time like laid off or I did. I knew that I would be drinking, so I wanted to have like a month behind me before the ball dropped on me, and I could see it coming. Eventually, the bank that I worked at was run by robots, and that's the absolute truth. There was no, it was called a lights out operation. You didn't have to turn the lights on. The robots could do what they had to do in the dark. And so gradually, and very gradually, I changed resentments into acceptance, fear into hope, and anger into love. And I could see my way out of the end of my first career, which I really loved. And I thought, oh, what am I going to do? I'm 43 years old. And I've been doing this all my life. Well, I said, go back to school and learn something different. And I did. I became a neurosurgery nurse and I worked in the other areas I told you. And, but I never wanted to climb to the top. And I didn't like what I saw, and it just, being sober really put me in a good spot. And it talks here of undue expectations. You've cut a lot of bridges behind you, and you can't seem to go back. And I know many, many people, men and women, who have spoken of they've been ostracized from their family, their kids won't talk to them. For some, it comes back. It comes back relatively quickly, maybe after a year or two of sobriety. Some have been sober 10 years. It's difficult to get it back. So you may have to accept that it's not happening on your time. It's God's time. And for some, it never happens, and they have to get on with their life following the steps of AA. And I begin and end my day with thanks to God who has so generally shed his grace on me. And I put down that grace fills in the bookends. From morning to night, grace is all around us, available to anyone who wants it. It's a free gift of God. It comes directly from God. And all glory to God for his inexhaustible amount of grace. And finally, I had to learn that in order to keep all that I had learned in the program, I had to give it away. If I don't do that, it goes stale and you start sliding, and you got to remain engaged. And this is my way of staying engaged in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I hope you all have a good and sober Saturday, and we'll see you tomorrow on Sunday. God bless.